Hey everyone, tonight we find ourselves in a place that's less of a place and more of a geologic snarl, a gash of rock and dust that has chewed up and spat out empires for 3,000 years. We're in the Khyber Pass. You can almost hear the wind whistling over the jagged peaks, carrying the ghosts of armies that thought this time they'd be the ones to tame it. You were standing on ground that felt the sandals of Alexander the Great's men, the boots of British redcoats, and the tread of Soviet tanks. And very few of them had a good time. It is a place where supply lines go to die, and where local knowledge beats shiny new weapons every single time. It is a stark reminder that the landscape itself is often the most powerful general in any war. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive this place for a week, not without a very good guide and a willingness to drink tea that's mostly butter. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling generous with your keyboard, maybe post your location and what time it is where you are. I always find it fascinating to see where everyone is tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing now at the mouth of the pass, near the modern border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. The air is thin, dry. The mountains here aren't the pretty green alpine sort of mountains. They are brutalist, brown, and gray, folding into each other like crumpled paper. They look angry. This is the Hindu Kush, and this pass is the 33-mile-long artery that connects Central Asia to the Indian subcontinent. For millennia, it's been the only practical way for large groups of people, and more importantly, large armies, to get from one to the other. You're looking at the most famous and most infamous invasion route in human history. This is a mainstream historical fact that's almost cliché, but its importance can't be overstated. Everyone from the Persians to the Mughals to countless nomadic tribes used this narrow corridor to pour down onto the plains of India. It was a one-way street for conquest, but it's also a trap. You look up at the cliff sides. You can't see them, but you feel them. The eyes. The local Pashtun tribes, who have lived here forever, are the true masters of this terrain. They view the pass not as a road but as their home, and anyone passing through is just a temporary and often wealthy guest, or a target. For centuries, the tribes held a simple policy. You want safe passage? You pay. You want to try and force your way through? Good luck. You'd be navigating a 33-mile-long shooting gallery. The British Empire, at the height of its global power in the 19th century, learned this the hard way. They would march an army in, declare the pass pacified, and then get bled white by 1,000 tiny invisible cuts. They called this whole region the Northwest Frontier, and it was a permanent, festering wound for their empire. It was the epicenter of what became known as the Great Game, that wonderfully paranoid Cold War between Britain and Russia. Both terrified the other was going to use this very pass to sneak in and steal India. This place isn't just a military headache, it's a psychological one. You can feel the claustrophobia. The walls of the pass in some places narrow to just a few dozen feet wide. In other places, it opens up into small, dusty valleys, but you're always overlooked. There is no part of this pass where you aren't exposed, vulnerable to a sniper's bullet or a rock slide from an unseen enemy high above. This is the terrain that baffled the greatest military minds of the West. Their textbooks, filled with geometric certainties about open-field battles and orderly sieges, were completely useless here. You couldn't see the enemy. You couldn't deploy your cavalry. Your cannons were too slow to drag up the slopes. It was a place designed by nature to break armies. And while it's known as this great military funnel, historians still argue whether its primary role over the centuries was truly as a path of invasion or as a superhighway for trade. The truth is, it was always both. The Silk Road, or rather, one of its most vital branches, ran right through here. For every soldier that marched this way, 1,000 merchants with silk, spices, gems, and ideas walked the same path. But in the early 19th century, the balance was tipping. The trade was still there, but the air was thick with gunpowder and political maneuvering. A new powerful empire was rising just to the south and east, an empire that wasn't European, wasn't Afghan, and wasn't Mughal. It was the Sikh Empire, and it was about to do the impossible. It was about to try and plug the Khyber Pass for good. And to do it, they wouldn't use a European general or a Mughal prince. They would use a man who saw this impossible, chaotic landscape not as a soldier's nightmare, but as a mathematician's problem. The wind in the past seems to quiet down for a moment, and your focus shifts south to the glittering, fertile plains of the Punjab. This is the land of 5 rivers, and it's the heart of this new rising power. To understand the man who would plug the Khyber, you first have to understand the man he worked for. You have to understand the one-eyed lion of Punjab. His name is Ranjit Singh. He is the Maharaja, the founder and the beating heart of the Sikh Empire. You see him in your mind's eye, not as a young man, but at the height of his power, holding court in the city of Lahore. He is, by all accounts, not an imposing man. He's short, his face is scarred by a childhood bout of smallpox, and that same disease has blinded him in his left eye. Not exactly what you'd call kingly, and probably not a swipe-right situation by modern standards. But the moment he speaks, or the moment that one good piercing eye lands on you, you'd understand. This is a man of singular, terrifying, and brilliant will. He was born into a fractured world. The Punjab of the late 18th century wasn't a single country. It was a chaotic patchwork of territories ruled by the Mizils. These were 12 powerful Sikh confederacies, part clan, part army, who had spent the better part of a century fighting off the decaying Mughal Empire and the constant, brutal invasions of Afghan rulers like Ahmad Shah Durrani. This is the mainstream historical fact of the era. The Mizils were incredibly effective as a guerrilla resistance, but they were terrible at coexisting. They fought the Afghans, and then, with equal enthusiasm, they fought each other. Ranjit Singh, inheriting his father's small missile at the age of 12, saw this chaos and, unlike everyone else, saw not a permanent state of being, but a problem to be solved. He was a political unifier, a Sikh Bismarck. Through a ruthless and brilliant combination of strategic alliances, political marriages, and sheer military genius, he did the impossible. He united the Mizils. He forged them into a single powerful kingdom, the Sarkari Khalsa, or the Sikh Empire. But this new empire wasn't just a bigger Mizil. Ranjit Singh was a pragmatist. He knew that the traditional Sikh fighting style, brave, fast, cavalry-based, but chaotic, couldn't build a lasting state. So he looked west. He saw the British East India Company gobbling up the rest of India with armies of disciplined, drilled, uniformed soldiers, and he thought, I'll have some of that. He began hiring European mercenaries, many of them ex-Napoleonic officers left jobless after Waterloo. Men like Jean-François Allard and Jean-Baptiste Ventura, Frenchman, Paolo Avitabile, an Italian, and Alexander Gardner, an American, flocked to his court in Lahore. He paid them lavishly, not just to fight, but to teach. They built the Fauji Khas, the army of the kingdom, a modern, European-style infantry and artillery corps that was the equal of any army in Asia, including the British. He melted down cannons and recast them, updated his musketry, and drilled his Sikh, Hindu, and Muslim soldiers relentlessly. His court was a strange, cosmopolitan place. You'd have grizzled Sikh Akali warriors with their towering blue turbans and quota of daggers mixing with polished French generals in shiny breastplates. And Ranjit Singh, the small one-eyed man, sat at the center of it all, playing them off each other, extracting their knowledge, and binding them all to his will. He was famously curious, a bit of a polymath himself, asking his European officers about everything from French wine to cannon metallurgy to Western systems of law. And speaking of his court, here's a quirky tidbit. He was the man who acquired the legendary Koh-i-Noor diamond. He persuaded the exiled Afghan emir Shah Shuja Durrani, who was seeking refuge in Lahore, to give it to him. The story involves a polite house arrest, a subtle starvation campaign, and a final tense meeting where the diamond was gifted in exchange for Sikh protection. It was a classic Ranjit Singh move, velvet-gloved but utterly ruthless. This is the man you're dealing with. A unifier, a modernizer, a master of a hybrid army. And he was famously tolerant. This is where historians still argue whether Ranjit Singh's state was a true theocratic Sikh empire or a more secular, pragmatic Punjabi empire. He was a devout Sikh, no question, starting every day by listening to the Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh holy book. But his prime minister was a Dogra Hindu. His foreign minister was a Muslim. He rebuilt Hindu temples and funded Muslim mosques. He seemed to value talent and loyalty far above religious or ethnic purity, which was almost unheard of at the time. He wasn't building a state for Sikhs. He was building a Punjabi state led by Sikhs. But as you stand with him in his new capital of Lahore, you can feel his anxiety. His one good eye keeps drifting northwest, towards that pass. He has built this glittering, wealthy, modern empire on the plains. It is a prize, and he knows better than anyone that it is profoundly vulnerable. The Afghans, now united under the Barakzai dynasty, look at his empire as an affront and at its wealth as their birthright. For centuries, the Khyber was their highway for plunder. Ranjit Singh knew that every soldier he had, every European-trained battalion, was built for the open plains of the Punjab. They would be just as useless in the jagged defiles of the Khyber as the British were. He needed something different. He needed a new kind of defense and a new old kind of warrior to hold the line. He needed a man who understood both the drill sergeant's manual and the ancient, brutal calculus of the frontier. He was looking for a tiger. Ranjit Singh doesn't have to look far. The man he needs is already in his service, a young commander who is rapidly becoming a legend. His name is Hari Singh, and you see him now, standing in the Lahore court. He's tall for the era, broad-shouldered, and carries himself with an unnerving stillness. He wears the armor and turban of a Sikh Sardar, a chieftain, not the tailored European coat of the Fauji Khas. He is polite, even soft-spoken in court, but his eyes have the same penetrating, slightly dangerous quality as the Maharaja's. This is not a man who has ever been comfortable. He is a man who thrives on the edge of chaos. This is Hari Singh Nalwa. He wasn't born into the highest nobility, but his family from Gujranwala had a proud warrior tradition. He entered Ranjit Singh's service as a teenager around 1804. The mainstream historical fact of his recruitment is a perfect miniature of his entire life. He had gone to Lahore to settle a property dispute. While waiting for his case to be heard, he decided to pass the time by joining in some of the athletic games and military drills the young recruits were practicing. He wasn't just good, he was phenomenal. He excelled in tent pegging, spearing a small target from a galloping horse, swordplay, and wrestling. Ranjit Singh, who had a jeweler's eye for human talent, spotted this prodigy immediately. The property dispute was forgotten, and Hari Singh was enlisted on the spot as a personal attendant. Not a bad career move, swapping a tedious legal battle for a spot in the king's inner circle. His resume basically read, good with horses, can lift heavy things, absolutely zero fear of imminent death. He rose fast, not just because he was strong, but because he was smart. He received a command in a regiment at a young age and immediately proved his worth in the brutal siege of Kasur in 1807. This wasn't a clean European-style battle. It was a bloody, desperate fight against Afghan Ghazis, and Hari Singh was always at the front. But it's not his battlefield record that cemented his name in Punjabi folklore. It's how he got his nickname, Nalwa. This is the quirky and frankly terrifying tidbit that defines him. The story goes that on a hunt, Hari Singh, now a young commander, was suddenly attacked by a massive tiger that leaped from the tall grass. His rifle misfired or was knocked from his hands, details vary. As the tiger pounced, pinning him and his horse, his companions froze in terror. Most people at this point would simply be resigning themselves to becoming a well-balanced breakfast. But Hari Singh was not most people. Instead of panicking, he reportedly grabbed the tiger by its open jaws, using his bare hands to force the mouth open and prevent the killing bite. As he wrestled the predator, he drew his katar, a short, thick-bladed punch dagger, and with one colossal effort drove it deep into the tiger's throat, killing it. He then, so the legend claims, calmly walked back to his comrades, covered in blood, and asked what they were waiting for. From that day on, he was known as Nalwa, a name whose exact meaning is debated. but is often linked to a king from the Mahabharata famous for his courage, or simply, the one who split the tiger's head. You can imagine the effect this had on his reputation. When a man who literally rips tigers apart with his bare hands tells you to charge, you don't really pause to ask questions. Now, historians still argue about the literal blow-by-blow truth of this story. Was it a complete fabrication? Unlikely. Was it polished, embellished, and amplified for maximum effect? Absolutely. In the 19th century, a general's reputation was as important as his artillery. This wasn't just a hunting story. It was a press release. It was a calculated piece of personal branding that told the entire empire, and especially its enemies, exactly what kind of man this was. This was not a French general who fought by the textbook. This was a force of nature. This was the living embodiment of the Sikh warriors and ideal, pious and humble in peace, but an unstoppable storm in war. This story, and the reality behind it, made him Ranjit Singh's ultimate weapon. The Maharaja had his Europeans to drill his infantry. He had his politicians to manage his court. But when he had a problem that was too dirty, too violent, or too impossible for anyone else, he sent for Nalwa. Hari Singh became the man who would lead the vanguard in the most difficult campaigns. The conquest of Sialkot, the brutal multi-year siege of Multan, and most importantly, the campaigns that pushed the Sikh Empire's borders into the Afghan heartland. He was the one who captured Attock on the Indus River, and then, in a stunning victory, retook Kashmir for the empire. He wasn't just a general. He was the Fauji Khasa's designated opener of doors, and he preferred to use a battering ram. He was becoming the most famous and most feared man in the Sikh Empire, second only to the Maharaja himself. And Ranjit Singh, looking at that intractable army-eating nightmare called the Khyber Pass, knew this was a job for the tiger. But you need to pause that thought. If you repicturing Ranjit Singh just unhooking the tiger from his leash and pointing him at the mountains, you're missing the entire point. You'd be making the same mistake all his enemies made. They focused on the legend, the tiger's lair, the berserker, the ferocious Sikh Sardar. And that's exactly what Hari Singh Nalwa wanted them to focus on. Because while they were busy being terrified of the man's reputation, they were getting completely outmaneuvered by the man's brain. The tiger brand was a brilliant piece of psychological warfare, but the man behind it was not a brute. He was a polymath. He was one of the most sophisticated and educated minds of the Sikh Empire. Let's look at his resume again, shall we? You don't just become the governor of massive, newly conquered, and deeply resentful territories like Kashmir and Hazara by being good at hitting things with a sword. That's a mainstream historical fact that's easy to overlook. After he conquered Kashmir, Ranjit Singh made him its governor. This wasn't a reward, it was a test. The place was a mess, ravaged by a recent famine, misrule from the previous Afghan governors, and a corrupt bureaucracy. Nalwa didn't just show up with an army and sit in a palace. He reorganized the entire tax system to make it more equitable and, more importantly, to actually work. He introduced new crops to help alleviate the famine. He cracked down on corruption and started public works projects. He was, in short, a brilliant and ruthless administrator. He was doing statecraft. He was a statesman, a diplomat, and an economist, all while wearing the armor of a warrior. And his education was formidable. He was fluent and literate in Persian, which was the high language of court, diplomacy, and law for this entire part of the world, a legacy of the Mughal Empire. He was a calligrapher and a scholar of Sikh scripture. He was, in a very real sense, the model of the Sikh ideal, the Sant Sipahi, or the saint soldier, a man who could meditate on the nature of God in the morning and calculate the precise trajectory of a cannonball in the afternoon. Which brings us to the real, hidden weapon, his mathematics. When you think warrior, you don't typically think mathematician. But in the pre-modern world, the two were often inseparable. You couldn't be a master of artillery without understanding ballistics, which is pure physics and math. You couldn't build a simple bridge, let alone a fortress, without a deep practical understanding of geometry, trigonometry, and engineering. And this is where Nalwa separated himself from his peers. This wasn't just a hobby. He saw the world in angles, stress loads, and geometric proofs, and this is where historians still argue. Where did he get this knowledge? Was he a self-taught prodigy, a kind of frontier Ramanujan with a sword? Did he quietly pick the brains of those European mercenary engineers like Ventura or Allard back in Lahore, learning their star fort principles just so he could later discard them? Or, and this is a fascinating thought, was he drawing on a much older, perhaps unwritten tradition of Indic or Persian military architecture and mathematics, a tradition the West had no knowledge of? The record is silent. We just know the results. Here's a quirky tidbit for you. Nalwa was also a minter of coins. As governor of Kashmir, he started a new mint and issued his own currency. Think about the skills involved in that. You have to understand metallurgy to keep people from clipping or counterfeiting. You have to understand economics to set the value. And you have to understand the political symbolism of stamping your authority on the state's medium of exchange. This is not the resume of a simple-minded brawler. This is the CV of a Renaissance man, 19th century Punjabi style. He was a general, a governor, an economist, a statesman, a coin maker, and, underpinning it all, a cold, practical mathematician. He was, to put it in modern terms, a systems-level thinker. He didn't just see a problem. He saw the entire complex, interlocking system behind the problem. So when Ranjit Singh gives him the impossible job of taming the frontier, he's not sending a general. He's sending a project manager. A very, very dangerous project manager. He's sending a man who can ride into a valley, talk to the local tribal leaders in their own political language, understand their grievances, calculate the valley's economic output, design a fortress to control its choke points, and then if the talks fail, lead the cavalry charge that wipes them out. All before lunch. This is the man you're dealing with. And as he turns his gaze from his administrative duties in Kashmir towards that jagged, chaotic line of mountains that is the Khyber, his mind isn't thinking about tigers laying. He's thinking about geometry. You have to understand what state of thought meant at this time. When Ranjit Singh's European generals, men like Allard and Ventura, thought of a fortress, their minds didn't go to the chaotic, organic castles of the Middle Ages. They had been trained in, and were masters of, a very specific, very mathematical, and very French school of thought. You're picturing it now, the absolute gold standard of 19th century military engineering. You are picturing the Star Fort. This design, and the entire science of siege warfare, had been perfected over a century earlier by one man, Sébastien le Prestre de Vauban, the legendary military engineer of France's Sun King Louis XIV. Vauban's designs were the unchallenged answer to a very specific problem: the cannon. The old, tall, thin stone walls of medieval castles, the kind you see in fairy tales, were fantastic for stopping men with ladders. But they were ridiculously easy targets for gunpowder artillery. A few well-placed cannonballs could shatter them into rubble. So Vauban and his Italian predecessors, who developed the trace italien, or Italian outline, flipped the script. Instead of building up, they built out. You're looking at an aerial view of one of these forts, like the one at Neuf Brisach. It's a stunning, almost beautiful object, a perfect geometric snowflake carved into the earth. It is low-slung with thick earthen walls called a glacis, sloping gently outwards. This was the first revolution. A cannonball wouldn't shatter this wall. It would, ideally, just skim off the top or harmlessly bury itself in the dirt. But the real genius, the mainstream historical fact, is the shape. The star is made of a series of sharp, arrow-like projections called bastions, and this is where the geometry gets beautifully lethal. The entire fortress is a machine for creating interlocking fields of fire. From the rampart of one bastion, your soldiers and cannons have a perfect, unobstructed line of sight to fire along the wall of the two neighboring bastions. This meant it was impossible for an attacker to find a blind spot. The moment an enemy soldier reached the base of any wall, he would be instantly cut to pieces by musket and cannon fire coming at him from 2 or 3 different directions. The open ground around the fort was a perfectly calculated killing field. This was a mathematical solution to war. It was clean, it was precise, it was brilliant, and it dominated Western military thinking for nearly 200 years. This was the textbook. This was what those French generals in Lahore knew as correct. And to be fair, in its proper context, the wide, flat, open plains of Flanders or northern France, it was almost perfect. It presumed a certain kind of war. A war fought on a battlefield that you could level and measure. It presumed an enemy who would also play by the rules, an enemy who would dig his own orderly trenches and wheel his cannons into predictable batteries. But here's the quirky tidbit. Vauban was such a genius that he not only perfected the defense, the Star Fort, he also perfected the offense to beat it. He invented the systematic scientific method of siege attack using a series of parallel and zigzag trenches, saps, to creep closer and closer to the walls in perfect safety, a technique that would be depressingly familiar to soldiers in World War I. He was basically playing a chess game against himself and winning every time. This then was the European standard. It was a masterpiece of Euclidean geometry. It was a product of the Enlightenment, a rational, scientific solution to the problem of defense. And historians still argue whether its true legacy was in its defensive geometry or in the brutal, systematic, and trench-based offensive tactics Vauban invented to destroy his own creations. But for the men in Ranjit Singh's court, it was simply the way. This was the modern, scientific, right way to build a fort. You hire a European, you find a big flat piece of land, you spend a fortune, and you build a star. And as you look at this perfect, beautiful, symmetrical snowflake of a fortress, you suddenly realize you're about to try and build it in the Hindu Kush. And the entire concept just shatters. Now hold that image of the perfect, symmetrical French star fort in your mind. That beautiful, low-slung geometric snowflake. It is the absolute pinnacle of rational, Enlightenment-era military science. Now, you're standing back in the Khyber Pass. Look around. You're in a narrow gorge. The wind is howling, and the ground beneath your feet is a chaotic jumble of broken rock, loose scree, and gravel. The walls of this place are jagged cliffs shooting up thousands of feet, and they are not straight. They curve, they jut out, they recede. There is not a single, level, 100-yard patch of ground to be found anywhere. Now try to build your star fort. Where exactly were you planning on putting it? This is the square peg round hole problem, except it's more like a geometric snowflake, gaping wound in the earth problem. The Vauban fortress isn't just a bad idea here, it is a comically bad idea. It's an idea so divorced from reality that you'd be laughed out of the valley, probably right before you were killed. Why? Let's break down the failure. First, the foundation. A star fort requires a massive, perfectly leveled and stable base to lay out its precise angles. Just the excavation and foundation work for a Vauban fort on the flat plains of France was a monumental undertaking, taking years. Here, you'd have to dynamite half a mountain, import 10,000 tons of fill, and build a giant level platform, all while Pashtun snipers are taking potshots at your engineers from a mile away. It's a logistical impossibility. Second, let's talk about those famous interlocking fields of fire. They are the entire point of the design. Those bastions are calculated to the inch to ensure that fire from Bastion A covers the walls of Bastion B, and vice versa. This assumes the enemy is on a flat plain in front of you. In the Khyber Pass, the enemy is not in front of you. He is above you. He's 800 feet up that cliff face looking down on your beautifully designed rampart. Your cannons, angled for a horizontal fight, can't even elevate enough to hit him. And your bastions, meant to protect your walls from sappers below, offer zero protection from a sniper above. The Star Fort, in this terrain, isn't a fortress. It's a bowl. It's a prepackaged, geometrically perfect coffin for its own garrison. Then there's the material. Vauban's forts were built with millions of bricks or massive precision-cut blocks of dressed stone, all cemented together, and backed by colossal amounts of carefully compacted earth. You're in the Hindu Kush. Your available building supplies are mud, jagged rocks of all different sizes, and whatever scrubby wood you can find. You want bricks? You'd have to build kilns. You want wood? You'd have to chop down the few trees that exist, which the locals really need for their own survival, so good luck with that. You want to transport dressed stone? Up this pass? The supply line is the battlefield. This is the mainstream historical fact that doomed so many Western armies here. The logistics will kill you faster than the fighting. Your army, as Napoleon said, marches on its stomach, and in the Khyber, your stomach is always empty and your supply wagons are on fire. Here's a quirky tidbit. The tribesmen of this region were masters of the Jezil, or Jingal. This was their local, handmade rifle. Compared to a British Brown Bess musket, it looked like a piece of junk. It was absurdly long, often decorated with brass tacks, and had a curving stock. But it was rifled, and its extra-long barrel gave it incredible accuracy and range. A Pashtun sniper, resting his Jezil on a rock, could reliably hit a man-sized target from 500, 600, even 800 yards away. A star fort's rampart, designed to be safe from inaccurate musket fire from below, was just a big, static, open-air shooting gallery for a Jezil-wielding sniper he couldn't even see. It's like building a state-of-the-art battleship only to discover the enemy invented the aerial torpedo. All your armor is in the wrong place, so the Vauban fort fails geometrically. It fails logistically, and it fails tactically. It's built to stop a slow-moving 18th-century European army with heavy cannons. That is not the enemy here. The enemy is a Lashkar, a tribal war party. It's 2,000 men who move as fast as the wind, who know every goat track, who can climb a 1,000-foot cliff at night, swarm your position, and then vanish into 1,000 crevices before your heavy cannons have even been loaded. A star fort is a static, defensive anchor. It's designed to be besieged. The Pashtun tribes won't besiege it. They'll just ignore it. They'll cut off its water supply, pick off its sentries one by one, and wait for the garrison to starve, die of thirst, or go insane. It's like building the most expensive high-tech burglar alarm in the world, and the thief just takes the whole house. It's a stunningly useless investment. And this is where historians still argue. Did Ranjit Singh's European generals, men like Ventura and Allard, actually propose building these star forts? Did they show the Maharaja their beautiful French blueprints, only for Ranjit Singh and Hari Singh Nalwa to look at each other and try not to laugh? Or were the Europeans smart enough to know their own textbooks were useless here? We don't have a record of that conversation, but it's clear the idea was a non-starter. A new problem demanded a new solution. The frontier didn't need a symmetrical snowflake. It needed a jagged, ugly, terrifying piece of rock that could bite back. So the European star fort is out. It's a useless, expensive joke. Ranjit Singh, the one-eyed lion, is running an empire, not a military reenactment society. He doesn't care about correct textbook theory, he cares about results. And that bleeding wound in the northwest, that open artery of the Khyber Pass, is still pouring raiders and Afghan armies onto his plains. He's conquered the Punjab, he's taken Kashmir, he's modernized his army, but he still hasn't solved the single greatest existential threat to his new empire. Every night the reports come in. Another raid, another village burned, another caravan plundered. The frontier is a mess. It's chaotic, it's violent, and it's costing him a fortune in troops and lost revenue. He needs a permanent solution. He needs someone to go there, to that hellish, ungovernable strip of land, and not just fight a war, but end the problem. So, in the 1820s, after Nalwa has already proven his administrative genius in Kashmir, Ranjit Singh gives him the job. It's not a promotion. It's a hospital pass. He makes Hari Singh Nalwa the governor of Hazara, and later gives him command of the entire Trans-Indus frontier, including the volatile jewel in its crown, the city of Peshawar. You need to understand what this means. This isn't like being made governor of California. This is like being made the head of base operations on a hostile alien planet where the air is poison, and the locals are a species of highly intelligent, very angry velociraptors. This appointment, this governorship, is a mainstream historical fact, but the title is a polite fiction. This was, by every measure, a death sentence. The territories of Hazara and Peshawar were not functioning provinces of the Sikh Empire. They were occupied territories, peopled by proud, fiercely independent, and almost universally hostile Pashtun tribes. They hated the Sikhs. They saw them as infidel invaders, as an occupying army, and they had spent centuries perfecting the art of making an occupier's life miserable and short. The previous Sikh governors had failed spectacularly. They were either weak and were quickly assassinated, or they were brutal, which only united the tribes into massive, bloody rebellions known as jihads. that required the whole imperial army to come and put down. It was a lose-lose proposition. Here's a quirky and telling tidbit. The common saying in the Punjab about this region, especially Peshawar, was simply, "Peshawar is hell." It was a place where your servants were probably spies, the fruit in the market might be poisoned, and the polite man you shared tea with in the afternoon was probably planning which of his cousins would get to shoot you in the evening. There was no peace. There was just war, and brief suspicious pauses between the wars. And this is the job Ranjit Singh gives to his superstar general. "Congratulations, Hari," you can imagine him saying. "You've been so successful, I'm giving you hell." This is where historians still argue, and it's a fascinating debate. Was this appointment truly a sign of Ranjit Singh's ultimate faith in Nalwa? Was he the only man the Maharaja trusted with the impossible? Or was it a canny political move? By this point, Hari Singh Nalwa was a living legend. He was the tiger slayer, the conqueror of Kashmir, the hero of Multan. He was absurdly popular with the army, the Khalsa. He was, in short, the only other man in the empire who was as famous as Ranjit Singh himself. And if you're a king, even a brilliant one, a subject that popular can be a little nerve-wracking. Was this a way for the one-eyed lion to park his most charismatic, most powerful, and therefore most potentially dangerous general as far away from the Lahore court as possible? Give him a job so suicidal that it would either consume him or, at the very least, keep him too busy to be a political threat? We'll never know for sure, but it was probably a little bit of both. But Hari Singh Nalwa doesn't see it as a death sentence or a political exile. He sees it for what it is. He sees it as a problem, a complex multivariable equation. The enemy isn't just one thing. It's the terrain. It's the climate. It's the tribal social structure. It's the economy, or lack thereof. It's the psychology. And you can't solve an equation by just hitting it with a sword. He rides into Hazara, this nest of vipers, and he doesn't just start building gallows. He starts looking. He surveys. He maps. He talks to the locals who will talk to him. He's not just a general. He's a mathematician, and he's about to start sketching his proof. So you're standing with him, Hari Singh Nalwa, in a high pass in Hazara. The tiger is at work, but he's not roaring. He's calculating. You're not seeing a general planning a charge. You are seeing a mathematician staring at a deeply complex geometric proof scrawled across 1,000 square miles of hostile terrain. His mind isn't on glory. It's on variables. The European Star Fort solution failed because it only solved for one variable, a flat ground siege. Nalwa is looking at a dozen. Variable 1, the terrain. It's not just mountains, it's a 3D labyrinth. It's a series of blind valleys, narrow defiles, hidden passes, and forested ridges. This isn't the brown, dusty Khyber you're picturing yet. This is Hazara, which is often green, lush, and deceptively beautiful. And that beauty is the entire problem. It's a guerrilla fighter's paradise. This is the quirky tidbit. The very beauty of the place, the thick forests, the steep hills, the rushing streams, makes it an impossible place to control with a conventional army. A Sikh column marching down a valley floor is a fish in a barrel for snipers they can't see, hidden in forests they can't burn. Variable 2, the enemy. The Pashtun tribes here, the Karlals, the Tareen, the Tanolis, are not a standing army. That's the mainstream historical fact of his governorship, which began in 1822. These tribes are in a state of permanent, low-level rebellion. They don't have a capital to besiege. They don't have a supply line to cut. Their army is the population, and the population is the army. They can muster a 5,000-man Lashkar, war party, in an afternoon, attack a garrison, and by morning, they've all melted back into their villages, hiding their jizales in the thatch and going back to farming. You can't defeat them in a single battle because they don't exist as a single target. Variable 3, logistics. He can't afford to build a dozen massive, expensive European forts, and he can't afford to man them. Every soldier he parks in a static fort is a soldier who is not available for his mobile column. So the mathematician looks at this equation. You can't control the terrain, it's too big. You can't destroy the enemy, they're too diffuse. You can't outspend the problem. Lahore doesn't have that kind of money. What's left? You have to change the equation. You have to solve for a different variable, and the variable Nalwa settles on is movement. He realizes he doesn't have to control the mountains, he just has to control the paths between them. In a labyrinth, you don't need to guard every wall, you just need to guard the junctions. How do people move in this landscape? They follow the rivers. They use the low passes. They cross at the known fords. These are the nodes of the system. Control the nodes, he calculates, and you control the entire network. This is a fundamental shift in military engineering. A Vauban fort is a static defensive destination. It's a rock. Nalwa is designing a system. He's designing a web. He's inventing network-centric warfare in 1822. His first reports back to Ranjit Singh must have been a trip. Your Majesty, the good news is the scenery is lovely. The bad news is the scenery is actively trying to murder us, but I have a solution. It involves a lot of triangles. This is where historians still argue. Was Nalwa's initial strategy in Hazara one of pacification or pure calculated suppression? Did he ride in and try to win hearts and minds with tax breaks and diplomacy first and only build the forts when that failed? Or did he show up, plant his flag, and immediately start building his military machine, seeing diplomacy as a waste of time? The answer, knowing Nalwa, is probably yes. He likely offered peace with one hand while the other was already sketching the blueprints for a cannon tower. He was a pragmatist. He begins to identify the key nodes. The main river crossing at Attic, the entrance to the Haripur Basin, the strategic passes that led from one tribal territory to the next. He's not thinking about building one fort. He's thinking about building a chain of them. He's creating a firewall, to use a modern term. He's the world's most heavily armed IT guy, and he's decided the network security on this frontier is a complete joke. He needs watchtowers, birds, that can see each other. He needs a fort that can signal, by fire, smoke, or heliograph, to the next fort, which can signal to the next. So when a Lashkar forms in Valley A, the watchtower on the ridge sees it. It signals Fort B, which signals Fort C, and before the Lashkar has even finished sharpening their swords, Nalwa's own mobile cavalry force, garrisoned at a central point, is riding out to intercept them. He's using geometry to defeat guerrilla warfare. He's using a network to fight a network. You're looking over his shoulder now, squatting on a hillside in Hazara. The wind is cold and he's unrolled a piece of rough parchment, or maybe he's just using a stick to draw in the hard-packed dirt. You're watching the tiger at his drafting table. There's no square, no compass, no complex calculations of angles on paper. The blueprint is all around you. He points with his stick at the small, conical hill that commands this valley. The tower goes there, he says. Then he points to a rocky spine that connects to it. The wall runs along the crest, not at the bottom, on the crest. You are witnessing the birth of a radically new old kind of fortress. These first sketches look nothing like the European forts. There are no symmetrical stars, no graceful sloping glasses, no carefully measured bastions. His drawings look, to your modern eye, almost medieval. They are all sharp angles, vertical lines, and brutal, simple shapes. They are jagged, ugly, and look more like natural rock formations than something a human designed. A visiting French general from Ranjit Singh's court would look at these sketches and, quite frankly, he would laugh. He'd call them crude, primitive, barbaric. He'd say they show a complete ignorance of the last 200 years of military science. And Nalwa would just nod and then point to the hills, teeming with invisible snipers, and ask the general exactly how his star fort would survive its first night. Nalwa's design revolution is based on a few principles that are the exact opposite of the Vauban standard. First, terrain dictates form. The star fort imposes its own flat, symmetrical geometry onto the landscape. Nalwa's forts submit to the landscape. They are organic. They are like armored barnacles clinging to whatever rock is most defensible. If the best strong point is a narrow 200-foot-long ridge, the fort will be a long, thin spine fort. If the strategic point is a single isolated hill, the fort will be a tall circular or octagonal tower, a burge, bristling with guns. He doesn't fight the terrain, he weaponizes it. He lets the mountain do 80% of the defensive work for him. Second, Height is everything. Vauban's forts are low to deflect cannonballs. Nalwa's forts are tall. He's not worried about a long siege with heavy cannons. The local tribes don't have heavy cannons. He's worried about the man with the long-barreled Jezil on the ridge 800 yards away, and he's worried about a sudden 3,000-man Lashkar swarming him in a surprise night attack. His solution? Go higher. He builds tall, imposing towers that give his sentries a commanding view of every surrounding valley, every goat path. His fort isn't a bowl for snipers to shoot into. It's a perch for his own snipers to shoot from. This height also serves a profound psychological purpose. It's a permanent, visible stone and mud declaration of I am here. I am watching you. Always. Third, materials are local. This is a core part of the design. The blueprints don't specify dressed stone or kiln-fired brick. They specify local stone, mud, and straw. He designs his forts to be built fast and cheap, using whatever is at hand. This is the mainstream historical fact of his Hazara campaign. He's not building a permanent, multi-generational cathedral to war like the French. He's building a 19th century equivalent of a forward operating base, FOB. It needs to go up in weeks, not years. It needs to be repairable by the soldiers garrisoned inside it, using the dirt and rocks right outside the wall. This makes his logistical train, the great weakness of all other armies, almost non-existent. And here's the quirky tidbit. This mewed and wattle construction, which the Europeans would have sneered at as primitive, was actually better for this environment. A rigid, mortared stone wall, when hit by the, admittedly small cannons the tribes did have, would crack and shatter. Nalwa's walls, made of packed earth, rock, and mud, peas, were flexible. They would absorb the impact of a small cannonball. It would just thud into the wall and stop, leaving a small pockmark. It was the same principle as the earthen glacis of the Vauban fort, just applied with different, cruder materials. It was accidentally brilliant, or perhaps deliberately brilliant. So the sketches you're looking at are for a system, a network of these ugly, tall Mudandrock towers, built on the nodes of the landscape. And historians still argue about the origin of these designs. Was Hari Singh Nalwa a complete original, an intuitive genius who invented this all from scratch? Or was he simply a brilliant student of history? Was he adapting the ancient designs of Mughal and Rajput hill forts, which for centuries had also clung to ridges and prized height? Was he taking those older, more passive Castliana hill designs and actively militarizing them, adding interlocking fields of fire between his towers, creating a hybrid of ancient form and modern function? The truth is likely a mix. He was a polymath. He took what worked, the height of the old world, the materials of the new, and his own unique mathematical understanding of networks, and he fused them into something new. These blueprints are a military revolution in miniature. They are a direct rejection of European dogma. They are ugly, they are practical, and they are designed not for a textbook, but for the real, dirty, vertical, and terrifying world he's been tasked to tame. And now the sketches are done. It's time to build the first one. Let's dig deeper into that blueprint, because these aren't just architectural principles. They are a psychological profile of their builder. They are a philosophy of war. The first and most important principle is the one you already heard him state. The fort is built with the mountain, not on it. This is the core of his genius. A European engineer sees a hill as an inconvenience, a lump of rock that needs to be leveled, or at least a foundation to be built upon. Hari Singh Nalwa sees the hill as the fort itself. He's just adding the armor. His walls are not designed to be the primary defense. The cliff is the primary defense. The ridge is the primary defense. His walls are just the jagged teeth he's bolting onto the jawbone of the mountain. You're tracing the lines of his sketch. See how the wall doesn't go in a straight line? It zigs and zags, not for a geometric reason, but because that's where the bedrock is. It follows the path of a natural ridge, making it impossible to tunnel under, a classic siege tactic. Why waste gunpowder, labor, and time digging a 20-foot foundation when the planet has already provided you with a 2,000-foot one? It's the ultimate in pragmatic, almost lazy efficiency. It's the kind of solution that makes highly trained, textbook-thumping engineers furious because it's so simple, and it works better than their complicated math. This is a mainstream historical fact of his designs. They are extensions of the geology. The watchtowers are not placed at even intervals. They are placed on the highest natural points where the view is best. It's a design that's 90% geology, 10% architecture. The second principle is a direct consequence of the first: function over everything. These forts are, and I cannot stress this enough, aggressively ugly. They have zero aesthetic considerations. Vauban's star forts are beautiful. They are symmetrical. They are pleasing to the Enlightenment mind, which loves order and pattern. Nalwa's forts are hideous. They are brutalist, lumpy, asymmetrical, and look like they were designed by a very angry badger. And that's the point. They are not there to host a Duke's garden party. They are there to terrify and to control. Every part of the design is ruthlessly functional. You see a loophole? It's not placed there to be part of a repeating pattern. It's placed there because it has a perfect, clear 500-yard firing lane down that specific goat track. You see a tower that's taller than the others? It's not for looks. It's because it's the only spot that can signal the next fort over, 15 miles away in the next valley. It's a design of pure, unadulterated purpose. The third principle is anti-logistics. This is the real 4D chess move. Nalwa understood what the British and so many others failed to grasp. In the Khyber and Hazara, the enemy isn't the Pashtun tribes. The enemy is logistics. The enemy is the 500-mile supply line back to Lahore. The enemy is the broken axle, the starving ox, the ambushed grain convoy. So he designed a fortress that opted out of that fight entirely. By building with local mud, rock, and straw, his forts were logistically independent. They didn't need a supply line of bricks, dressed stone, or mortar. They lived off the land just like the guerrillas they were meant to fight. And here's the quirky tidbit. This design extended to communication. Historians and engineers have noted the acoustic properties. These forts were often built on high exposed ridges, and the towers were like tuning forks. A signal drum, a specific pattern of musket shots, or even a powerful horn could be heard miles away, echoing from one valley to the next. He wasn't just building a physical network. He was building a 19th century, low-tech, acoustic internet. It was a jungle drumline allowing his forts to report a Lashkar forming in real time, way faster than any horsebound messenger. This is where historians still argue, and it's a critical point. Was this philosophy of geological warfare and anti-logistics something Hari Singh Nalwa invented ex nihilo, out of his own personal genius? Or was he the most famous and successful practitioner of a lost school of Sikh or Punjabi military engineering? We know the Sikhs had been fighting in these hills for generations. First as guerrillas themselves against the Mughals. Did they have their own, unwritten Vauban textbook, a set of principles for hill fighting that Nalwa simply perfected and wrote down in stone and mud? We don't have those texts. So was he an inventor, or was he a master craftsman applying a traditional but undocumented art? It's a frustrating and fascinating blank spot in the record. But you can see the results in his blueprints. The design is the philosophy. Weaponize the terrain, reject symmetry, prioritize function, deny the enemy a logistical target. It's a complete and total rejection of the European standard. It's a solution custom built for this one, impossible place. And now, he's ready to build. The theory is sound. The sketches are complete. It's time to put these brutal, ugly, brilliant ideas to the test in the most rebellious, violent, and hostile territory he controls. The theory is done. The sketches are in the dirt. Now it's time to build. And the laboratory for this first field test is Hazara itself. You're marching with Nalwa's column. This is not a grand imperial army on the move. It's a lean, mean, multi-purpose machine. The men marching beside you are not just soldiers, they are masons, they are carpenters, they are diggers. And the men who are digging are also carrying a musket on their backs. It's the ultimate work-from-home job, except your home is a half-built wall, and your colleagues in the next valley are actively trying to set you on fire. The pace is relentless. Nalwa doesn't give the local tribes time to think, let alone organize. His column appears in a strategic valley, not to raid, but to build. This is the mainstream historical fact of the Hazara pacification. It was a war of construction. From 1822 onwards, Nalwa's primary military activity was not fighting pitched battles, but raising a chain of these ugly, functional forts, thanas, and watchtowers, burhs, at every critical node in the landscape. He seizes a hillock that commands the main valley route. He doesn't just camp on it, he digs in. Instantly, the perimeter is set and half the men begin hauling rocks and mixing mud, while the other half form a protective screen, their jazail-toting counterparts watching from the ridges above. The local tribes, the Tareen or the Carlyles, gather. They've seen Sikh armies before. They come, they fight, they burn a village, they take some taxes, and they leave. But this is different. This is permanent. You can imagine the first real test. The fort is maybe half built, just a series of 10-foot-high Mudandrak walls. The signal horn blows from a sentry post. A lashkar of 3,000 tribesmen is pouring down the valley, screaming their war cries. In a Vauban fort, this would be a disaster. The walls aren't finished. But Nalwa's design is made for this. The soldiers drop their shovels, pick up their muskets, and man the half-finished walls. The fort is already functional. The height is already there. The interlocking fields of fire are already established. The lashkar charges, expecting to swarm a disorganized work camp, and instead, they hit a buzzsaw. They hit a prepared, elevated position that spits fire from a dozen angles. They are repulsed, leaving their dead at the base of this lumpy, half-finished mud pile. They retreat, confused and angry. And the next morning, the Sikh soldiers are right back at it, hauling rocks and adding another 5 feet to the wall. This is the psychological genius of it. Every attack fails to stop the construction, which only makes the fort stronger for the next attack. It's a self-perpetuating, self-improving defensive system. And here's a quirky tidbit. Nalwa didn't just build generic numbered forts. He was a statesman, remember? He founded a new town, Haripur, in the heart of this hostile territory, naming it, with no small amount of ego, after himself. Haripur, the city of Hari. And he protected it with a massive new fortress, Harikishanpur, built entirely on his new principles. It was a massive statement. It wasn't just a military outpost, it was a new capital for the region, a center of Sikh power, law, and commerce, all protected by his new, ugly, and incredibly effective architecture. This is where historians still argue. Was this relentless building campaign a sign of Sikh military control, or was it a sign of their desperation? Were these forts a symbol of Nalwa's dominance, or were they expensive, high-maintenance islands of Sikh power in a roiling sea of Pashtun hostility that he couldn't actually control? The truth is probably in the middle. The forts weren't designed to conquer the population. They were designed to manage them. They were designed to break the tribe's primary military advantage, mobility. Before the forts, a lashkar could raid a pro-Sikh village and be gone before Nalwa even heard about it. Now, as they try to move through the valley, they are seen. The tower on the ridge signals Fort Harikishanpur. Harikishanpur signals the next fort down the line. And now, Nalwa knows where they are and where they are going. Even better, his forts are not just defensive. They are offensive launch pads. They are gas stations and ammo dumps for his own mobile cavalry. These forts were less come and get me and more hold my beer, I'll be right back. The second a lashkar is spotted, Nalwa's cavalry isn't riding from 50 miles away. It's sallying out from a fully stocked fort just 5 miles away, hitting the war party in the flank while they're still marching. He's using his network to destroy their network. It's pacification by way of aggressive, pointy architecture. It's very feng shui if your shui is stop murdering my tax collectors. It works. Not perfectly, of course. This is Hazara. The fighting never truly stops, but it's no longer a burning existential crisis. The rebellions are contained. The lashkars are intercepted and broken. The tax revenue starts to, very slowly, trickle in. The Hazara pacification is a qualified success. The model is proven. The brutal, ugly, geology-based, anti-logistical fortress works. The field test is complete. And now, Ranjit Singh gives him the final exam. He turns to his tiger-slaying mathematician and points to the biggest, baddest, most important hole in his entire empire. Good job in Hazara, Hari, he says. Now go plug the Khyber Pass. So let's walk through one of these early, brutalist experiments. You're approaching the fortress Nalwa built to guard his new capital of Haripur. This is Harkishanpur. And the first thing you notice is, well, what don't you notice? There's no grand sweeping avenue. There's no soaring carved gateway. There are no silk banners flapping in the breeze. The fortress just emerges from the ridge it's built on. You almost can't tell where the mountain stops and the wall begins. It's the architectural equivalent of a crocodile, 90% submerged, just two angry eyes and a snout sticking out of the mud. This is the very definition of function over form. A European general would be appalled. It's messy. The walls aren't a consistent height. They rise and fall with the bedrock. The towers aren't spaced every 100 feet in a perfect repeating pattern. They are clustered on the corners and at the highest point, like knuckles on a fist. The stone is just rocks. It's a jumble of jagged, undressed local rock of all different shapes and sizes, and the mortar holding it all together is a thick, dark slurry of mud and straw. It looks less like a fortress and more like a half-petrified avalanche. And that, of course, is the entire point. It's camouflaged by its own ugliness. This is the mainstream historical fact of these Thanas forts and burges, towers. Harkishanpur was not just a military base, it was the administrative center for all of Hazara. Inside those crude walls were the tax collectors' offices, the courthouse, the granary, and the governor's residence. It was a political, economic, and military statement, all in one. It was Nalwa's way of building a stone and mud department of "we are in charge now," and he built it on the highest ground he could find. You're walking up to the gate, or rather, the gate. It's a tiny, iron-banded, heavy wooden door, maybe 10 feet high, tucked into an inward curving angle in the wall. It's a sally port, not a gate. It's a deliberate kill zone. To even approach this door, you have to walk down a narrow 30-foot-long chute with 20-foot-high walls on either side of you. And those walls are just riddled with loopholes. This isn't an entrance, it's a meat grinder. Let's talk about those loopholes. In a Vauban fort, they are precise, identical, and angled for flat trajectory fire. Here, they are a chaotic mess, and it's a calculated, lethal chaos. You see a slit at ankle height, angled sharply down, designed to shoot any attacker who reaches the base of the wall. 10 feet above it, you see a wide, splayed opening for a small cannon, a zambarak or camel gun, that commands the entire valley floor. 5 feet to the left is a tiny, round hole, just big in diameter, which you realize is a sniper's port, with a 1,000-yard view of the opposite ridge. Each opening is custom-built for its specific firing line. This isn't symmetrical geometry. This is predatory geometry. And here's a quirky tidbit. The internal structure, as best we can tell from the ruins of these forts, was just as ruthlessly practical. There were no grand halls or comfortable chambers. It was a warren of small, thick-walled rooms built one on top of the other, often using the outside wall of the fort as the back wall of the room. This meant every single room, every barracks, every grain store, added to the defensive thickness of the main wall. It's like a turtle's shell where the skeleton and the armor are the same thing. And historians still argue about the water management systems. How did these forts, perched on high, dry ridges, survive a siege? They must have had massive, hidden underground cisterns carved into the bedrock to catch every drop of scarce rainwater. But finding evidence of these systems, the guts of the fort, is incredibly difficult. So you're standing in the shadow of this thing, Harkishanpur. It's lumpy, it's crude, it's made of mud, and it is the most terrifying thing you have ever seen. Because it feels alive, it feels like an extension of the mountain's own hostile, watchful spirit. This is what Nalwa perfected in Hazara. He created a system of surveillance and control. A network of these ugly, functional watching towers that broke the rebels' spirit by breaking their primary weapon: surprise. The model is proven. The beta test is a resounding success. And now, Ranjit Singh has a new, identical-looking but far, far more dangerous job posting. The Hazara model is a resounding success. The tiger mathematician has proven his theory with mud, rock, and relentless, brutal pragmatism. His network of ugly, watchful forts has done what no one thought possible. It has brought a measure of stability, a Sikh stability, to that rebellious land. But now you're riding with him out of those green forested valleys. The air is changing. It's getting drier, dustier. The hills are turning from green to a stark angry brown. You're heading west, towards the true frontier. You're heading for the big one. Because Ranjit Singh, the one-eyed lion, has seen the beta test, and he's ready to launch the final product. He gives Hari Singh Nalwa his ultimate and final assignment: plug the Khyber Pass. This is not just another governorship. This is the final exam. Hazara was a problem of pacification. It was about controlling unruly tribes, stopping local lashkars, and collecting taxes. The Khyber Pass is a problem of national security. This isn't about local raiders. This is about the Emir of Afghanistan. It's about the full professional standing army of the Afghan Empire, based in Kabul, who look at the wealthy plains of the Punjab as their stolen birthright. The Khyber Pass is the 33-mile-long shotgun barrel they have pointed for centuries directly at the heart of India. And Ranjit Singh has just ordered Hari Singh Nalwa to walk up and stuff a cork in it. The strategic linchpin of this whole region is the ancient city of Peshawar. It sits right at the eastern mouth of the pass, like a bead on a string. It's a huge, sprawling, vital city, a center of trade, a Pashtun cultural capital. And for years, the Sikhs had a tenuous hold on it. They'd raid it, sack it, install a puppet governor, and then leave, only to have the puppet get assassinated and the whole cycle start over. It wasn't part of the Sikh empire. It was a tributary that mostly paid in rebellion. In 1834, Ranjit Singh and Nalwa decided to end this charade. This is the mainstream historical fact. They marched in, kicked out the local Barakzai governors, and formally annexed Peshawar to the Sikh empire. This was not a subtle move. This was a political earthquake. This was the Sikh empire drawing a new, permanent line in the sand just inches from the Afghan border. And to make this line stick, Ranjit Singh gave the governorship of this new, incredibly volatile province to the one man who might actually be able to hold it: Hari Singh Nalwa. This wasn't just a job. It was a direct challenge. It was a gauntlet thrown at the feet of the Afghan emir in Kabul, Dost Muhammad Khan. It was a statement that said, "This is ours now. Come and try to take it back." And this is where Nalwa's reputation, that Tiger Slayer brand, became his most powerful weapon. Here is a quirky and famous tidbit. The fear of Hari Singh Nalwa among the Afghan tribes was so profound, so visceral, that his name became a tool for domestic discipline. For generations after his death, Pashtun mothers in the region would reportedly quiet their crying or unruly children by invoking his name. They'd whisper, "Be quiet. Nalwa Razi. Nalwa is coming." He had become the bogeyman, and this psychological terror was just as important as any fortress wall. He was fighting the war in their minds before he'd even laid the first stone. But this is where historians still argue. Was the 1834 annexation of Peshawar a brilliant, decisive masterstroke that secured the empire's border? Or was it a fatal, arrogant overreach? Did it poke the Afghan bear so viciously that it guaranteed a massive, climactic war that the Sikh empire in the long run couldn't afford? Was Nalwa securing the frontier, or was he planting the seeds of its eventual destruction by inviting a jihad he couldn't possibly win? Nalwa, the pragmatist, doesn't have time for these long-term debates. He has a job to do. His task is simple, and it is impossible. He has to take his Hazara principles, the ugly forts, the geological warfare, the anti-logistics, and scale them up. He has to build a firewall for an entire empire in the most hostile piece of real estate on Earth. He's no longer just building thanas to control villages. He is now building a chain of fortresses to stop a nation. He stands at the mouth of the pass, the wind whipping his beard, and he begins to do the math. He has the theory, he has the experience, and now he has the ultimate non-negotiable mission. He needs to build the cork, and he finds the perfect spot. You're standing with him now. You are no longer in the green valleys of Hazara, or even in the relative safety of Peshawar city. You are at the Khyber Pass. Not just in it, but at its very mouth. This is the threshold. This is the precise geographical point where the flat, fertile plains of the Punjab end and the jagged, hostile mountains of the Hindu Kush begin. It is the single most strategic square mile in the entire empire. An army from Kabul must pass this exact spot to get to Peshawar. There is no going around. This is the funnel. This is the choke point. And this is where Hari Singh Nalwa decides to build his masterpiece. You look up and you see it. Jamrud. It is, in a word, a monster. This is not some small Mudandrak Burj, watchtower, clinging to a ridge. This is the Hazara principle taken to its most terrifying, logical extreme. It is a beast of a fortress squatting on the dusty plain right at the entrance to the pass, like a spider guarding the mouth of its web. It's a deliberate, calculated, and supremely arrogant statement in stone and mud. It's a fortress that looks angry. It doesn't just control the pass, it dares it, it glares at it. It is the architectural embodiment of Hari Singh Nalwa himself. Ugly, pragmatic, and radiating an aura of absolute bone-chilling menace. This is the mainstream historical fact. In 1836, just a couple of years after formally annexing Peshawar, Hari Singh Nalwa began the construction, or more accurately, a massive radical rebuilding of a smaller, older fort of this new fortress. He named it, with his typical lack of subtlety, Fatehgarh, which means Fort of Victory. It was a name chosen specifically to taunt the Afghans. It was a victory flag, a "We won, this is our" statement, built right on their doorstep. But the old local name for the spot is the one that stuck, Jamrud. And its design. Its design is what baffled everyone. A European general brought to this spot would have built a classic Vauban star. He'd have leveled the plain and built a symmetrical, low-slung, beautiful fortress. Nalwa did the exact opposite. Jamrud is not symmetrical, it's not beautiful, and it is not low. It is a towering, asymmetrical, 10-sided thing. It's a lumpy, 10-sided polygon with massive 40-foot-high walls, all crowned with a central, even taller keep. It has battlements and loopholes everywhere, at every conceivable angle, like a stone and mud porcupine. It looks less like a 19th century fortress and more like a fever dream version of a medieval castle, designed by a mathematician who was having a very bad day. Here's a quirky tidbit. The shape is often described as being like a ship of the line, a battleship, if that ship had been built by a giant and then run aground at the mouth of the pass. It was designed to present a confusing, terrifying, and lethal series of angles to any approaching army. It was the tiger's ultimate psychological weapon. Remember the Nalwa is coming? Bogeyman stories? This is the bogeyman's house. It was built to be the first thing the Afghan army saw as they came out of the pass. It was built to make them stop, to make their blood run cold, to make them look at that towering, muddy, 10-sided nightmare bristling with cannons and think, you know what? Kabul isn't so bad after all. This is where historians still argue. Was Jamrud a complete from-scratch Nalwa invention, the pinnacle of his new school of geological warfare? Or was he in fact rebuilding on a much older, perhaps even ancient mound? Some legends place a fort here from the time of the mythical king Jamrud. Was Nalwa the genius inventor? Or was he the genius restorer, a man who understood the bones of this ancient strategic land so well that he knew where the old magic, the old power was and just built on top of it? You're standing at its base. The walls, made of packed earth, local stone, and straw, go 40 feet straight up. You feel small. You feel watched. You feel like the 5,000-man garrison inside can see every move you make. This is the masterpiece, and it's about to face its first and last great test. You're still at the base of Jamrud, looking up at that 40-foot-high, 10-sided, lumpy brown wall. And your 19th-century European-trained brain is screaming, this is all wrong. You're an engineer. You know how to build a real fort. A real fort is made of dressed stone, cut into perfect, identical blocks. Or it's made of millions of kiln-fired bricks. It's held together with high-quality, lime-based mortar. It is a monument to precision, a testament to the industrial and financial power of the state that built it. This is a mud pie. A colossal 40-foot-high, terrifyingly large mud pie. You can literally see the bits of straw and chaff sticking out of the mortar between the jagged, irregular local stones. It's what a child would build if that child was a 40-foot-tall giant with a bad attitude. This is the mainstream historical fact that completely bewildered European observers, especially the British, who were starting to send their first spies, they called them political officers and explorers, into the region. Their reports are just dripping with condescension. They look at Jamrud and they write about its crude, primitive, and barbaric construction. They see the mud, and they laugh. They see it as definitive proof of the backwardness of the Sikh Empire. They couldn't have been more wrong. They were, in fact, looking at a design that was ballistically superior to their own rigid, mortared stone walls. Here's the problem. A cannonball is pure kinetic energy. When that energy hits a rigid wall like a beautifully mortared dressed stone wall, it has nowhere to go. The energy transfers violently. The wall doesn't bend, it shatters. A single cannonball can send a spiderweb of cracks through a 10-foot section, and more importantly, it creates spalling, a deadly explosion of stone splinters and shrapnel on the inside of the wall, which is often more lethal to the defenders than the cannonball itself. A rigid wall is brittle. It's a teacup. Hit it right, and the whole thing fails. Now, look at Nalwa's wall. It's made of peas, rammed earth, mixed with local rock, mud, and straw. It is not rigid, it is absorbent. It is a 40-foot-high, 12-foot-thick wall of a substance that has the consistency of a modern sandbag or a memory foam mattress. When a cannonball, and remember the Afghans only had relatively light mobile cannons, hits this wall, what happens? Thud. That's it. The wall doesn't shatter, it catches the cannonball. The kinetic energy is harmlessly dispersed through the flexible earthen matrix. The ball just buries itself. To breach this wall, you wouldn't need one well-placed shot. You'd need to fire 500 shots into the exact same hole just to dig your way through. It's the difference between punching a pane of glass and punching a heavyweight boxer in the stomach. One shatters, the other just absorbs the blow and glares at you. This is the quirky tidbit. Hari Singh Nalwa, whether by genius or by happy accident, had built a 40-foot-tall sandbag. He had created a vertical version of the sloping earthen glacis that Vauban used to protect his star forts. But Nalwa had made the entire wall out of it. This principle, that soft defenses beat hard ones against ballistics, is an incredibly modern idea. It is the same principle behind the sand-filled casemates of American Civil War forts and the sandbagged trenches of World War I. And this is where historians still argue. Did Nalwa know this? Did this mathematician general sit down and calculate that a pie's wall had a superior ballistic coefficient of absorption, or whatever the 19th century term for squishy was? Or was he just a pragmatist who said, well, we don't have time or money for 1,000,000 bricks, and there's plenty of mud, so let's use the mud. And then, in the first skirmish, was he pleasantly surprised when the cannonballs just thwacked into it and stopped? Given his record in Hazara and his tendency to think in systems, happy accident seems unlikely. He was building for his environment. He knew his enemy. He knew they had light cannons, not massive siege guns. And he designed a wall that perfectly neutralized that specific threat. Even better, it was easy to repair. A breach that would take a team of 100 master stonemasons 6 weeks to fix in a proper European fort could be repaired in Jamrud overnight by 20 soldiers with shovels and water. It was a self-healing wall of mud. And the British laughed at it. So you can imagine then who is standing next to you, also staring at this 40-foot-high mud pie and just shaking his head in disgust. He's a European. He's probably British, dressed in discreet, localish clothing, but with a telltale sunburn and a notebook he is trying very hard not to be obvious about. You're a political officer. You're a geographer. You're an explorer. You're a spy. You are a player in the great game, that magnificent, paranoid, century-long Cold War between the British Empire and the Russian Empire for control of Central Asia. And this Sikh Empire is the buffer state you're all very worried about. This is the mainstream historical fact. Men like Alexander Burns, Charles Masson, and a dozen other explorers crisscross this exact region, sketching maps, assessing armies, and writing meticulous reports back to Calcutta and London. And now you, as this British spy, are trying to sketch Jamrud for your superiors, and you are baffled. Your entire military education, Everything you learned from your engineering manuals tells you this is the stupidest, most primitive, most wrong fortress you have ever seen. You pull out your copy of Vauban or your textbook from the Addiscombe Military College and you try to make sense of this, thing. Where are the star-shaped bastions? Gone. Where is the sloping scientific glacis? Non-existent. Where are the ravelins, the redoubts, the counterscarps? This general, this Hari Singh Nalwa, clearly never read a single proper book on engineering. He built a wall that is vertical, like a medieval. Everyone knows you don't build vertical walls in the age of cannon, and it's 10-sided. Why is it 10-sided? It's not a clean octagon. It's not a perfect square. It's some lumpy, asymmetrical decagon. Your classical education, steeped in the clean lines of Greece and the perfect arches of Rome, is deeply offended. This is not the work of a rational, civilized mind. This is, well, it's just barbaric. You write as much in your report. The fortress of Jamrud, you scribble, is a testament to the crude and unscientific nature of the Sikh military. It is a vast, misshapen pile of mud and rock, which, while imposing to the native eye, could not possibly withstand a determined assault by a civilized power. You'd probably add a joke in there, something like, the entire structure appears to have been designed by a man who was given a compass but was only allowed to use it while on horseback, at a full gallop. But then, there's a part of your report you write in a more cramped, confused hand. Because you're also a spy and you have to report the truth. And the truth is, it works. You've spoken to the locals. You've heard the reports from the last time a Lashkar came down from the pass with their small cannons. And the reports all say the walls just swallowed the cannonballs. You write, despite its primitive appearance, the walls, being of a soft pies-like substance, seem to possess an unusual and frustrating resilience to light artillery. You can't reconcile the two. How can something so wrong be so effective? It's like watching a man in a bearskin vest successfully perform brain surgery with a sharpened spoon. It doesn't make sense. This is where historians still argue. When we read these baffled, condescending British reports today, what are we really reading? Are we reading the genuine confusion of European officers whose textbooks had utterly failed them? Were they truly, militarily perplexed by Nalwa's anti-logical designs? Or was this all just political propaganda for the folks back home? Was it a deliberate, cynical campaign to paint the Sikh Empire as barbaric, primitive, and uncivilized, thus justifying in the long run an eventual British takeover to fix this savage frontier? It's probably a bit of both. They were genuinely confused, and that confusion was a very convenient piece of propaganda. They dismissed Nalwa as a warlord, not an engineer, because his scientific principles were not their scientific principles. You, the spy, just can't get over the look of the thing. The loopholes are in the wrong places, the towers are of different heights. The main gate is a tiny, sunken affair that looks more like a servant's entrance. You'd write something like, the main gate is a laughably small portal, tucked away as if in shame. It seems the architect only remembered to add a door after the rest of this monstrous mud pie was complete. You are so focused on form that you are completely, totally, and dangerously misunderstanding its function. You see a crude medieval mess. Nalwa built a 19th century ballistic-absorbing, psychologically terrifying, network-enabled killing machine. And as you file your dismissive report, you have no idea that your entire wrong-headed analysis is about to be put to the most violent test imaginable. That British spy, with his sneering report, is missing the most important variable in Hari Singh Nalwa's entire equation. He's analyzing the fortress as a physical object, a problem of geometry and engineering. He is failing utterly to see it for what it truly is. A 40-foot-high, 10-sided mud and straw weapon of psychological terror. Nalwa wasn't just a mathematician of angles and trajectories. He was a mathematician of fear, and Jamrud is his grand, terrifying final proof. Let's start with the most obvious, most wrong part of its design, the height. You're standing at the mouth of the pass, an Afghan Ghazi warrior, ready to ride down and plunder Peshawar. You've done this a dozen times, it's your birthright. But now, This thing is here. It is 40 feet high, with a central tower reaching even higher. It doesn't hide in the landscape like a star fort. It dominates it. It looms. This is the mainstream historical fact. The height was a deliberate, political, and psychological statement. It was the first and last thing you saw. It was a permanent, vertical no. It was designed to be seen from miles away. It was a giant, unblinking eye, and it was always, always watching you. This is the math of terror. Principle number 1. Be seen. Don't be subtle. Be the biggest, ugliest, most terrifying thing in the entire valley. This turns the entire landscape into a prison yard. The fortress becomes a panopticon. Even when you can't see a sentry on the wall, you feel the gaze. You know you are being watched. It's a 24/7, 365 state of surveillance. It's a tool for breaking your will long before you've even fired a shot. It's designed to make you paranoid. It's designed to make you jumpy. It's designed to make you whisper, "Nalwa Razi," because you feel like he personally is staring at you from that central tower. Now let's talk about those wrong angles. The spy was right. It's a lumpy, asymmetrical, 10-sided mess. And a European engineer would say, this is inefficient. A clean octagon would give you better, more predictable fields of fire. And Nalwa would say, exactly. Predictable is bad. The genius of the Star Fort is its perfect, predictable, interlocking geometry. The genius of Jamrud is its imperfect, unpredictable, monstrous geometry. It's not designed to be a clean mathematical solution. It's designed to be a monster. Think about it. Human brains are wired to find patterns, to see symmetry. Symmetry is safe. It's rational. It's understandable. Jamrud is none of those things. It's 10-sided, but not a regular decagon. Some walls are longer than others. The towers are at different heights. It's a violation of order. It's a glitch in the landscape. It's the architectural equivalent of a deep-sea creature, all plates and spines and angles that don't make sense. It's unsettling to look at. And that is exactly the point. It's designed to make an attacker feel confused, disoriented. Where is the main gate? Which part is the front? Which angle is weakest? The fort's answer is everywhere and nowhere. Here's a quirky tidbit. Think about the sound and light from this thing. At night, in the pitch black of the past, the fort isn't just a shadow. It's alive. Torches on those 40-foot walls would make it look like a giant, hovering constellation of angry red stars. The sound of the Sikh drums, the Nagara, beating a change of the guard, would echo off that 10-sided angled surface in weird, unpredictable ways. It would sound to an army camped a mile away like the mountain itself was growling. This is where historians still argue. Was this profound psychological effect, the math of terror, a deliberate primary design goal from the beginning? Did Nalwa sit down and say, "I will build a fortress to haunt their dreams"? Or was he just a ruthless pragmatist, building the most functional, ugly, cheap fort he could, using the mud, using the height for observation, and the terror was just a happy byproduct of that function? It's a classic chicken and egg debate. But when you look at his bogeyman reputation, when you look at him naming the fort Victory, it's hard to believe he wasn't fully, 100% aware of the psychological gold he was mining. Jamrud is the bogeyman's house, and he wanted you to be afraid of the dark. But the beauty of it is that the terror is just the first layer. The British spy was wrong about the function too, because beneath that crude exterior, those ugly angles were also hiding a different kind of geometry. A very physical, very lethal one. That British spy was looking for a system. He was looking for the clean, predictable Euclidean geometry of his French textbooks. And when he didn't see it, he declared the fortress a crude, misshapen pile with no scientific basis. He couldn't have been more wrong. He was looking for a 2D horizontal pattern, and he was completely missing the 3D, vertical and utterly lethal calculus that Nalwa had woven into those crude mud walls. Jamrud is a machine for creating interlocking fields of fire. It just doesn't broadcast it. Its system is one of asymmetrical overlapping and three-dimensional kill zones. You're standing back, 300 yards from the base. The spy saw a 10-sided lumpy mess. You're seeing what Nalwa saw. Pick a spot. Pick any spot on the ground near that fort. Now, trace the lines of sight. If you, an attacker, stand at the base of Wall A, you assume you're safe from the men on top of Wall A. Your only worry is Wall B to your left and Wall C to your right. That's the Vauban logic. But at Jamrud, this logic gets you killed. The moment you touch Wall A loophole at ankle level opens up and a Jezzail fires, taking out your knee. A moment later you are shot from Wall B and from Wall C, and from a 15-foot-high tower on top of Wall B, and from a Zambarak, a light camel gun cannon, in the central keep which has a perfect plunging line of fire onto your position. There are no blind spots. There are only your funeral spots. This is the mainstream historical fact. The walls of Jamrud were not just walls. They were gun platforms. They were bristling with hundreds of Sikh soldiers, not just with standard muskets, but with the Jezzail, that long-range, high-accuracy rifle the Pashtuns themselves loved. The Sikhs had adopted their enemy's best weapon, and Nalwa was giving his men a 40-foot-high sniper's perch to use it. The fortress wasn't a passive defense. It was an offensive gunist on a colossal scale. Every one of those crude, irregular angles was a custom-built firing position. Let's go back to that laughably small gate, that Sally Port. The spy saw it as an afterthought. You, as a student of Nalwa's School of Terror, see it for what it is, the deadliest part of the entire fortress. It's a trap. It's designed to be a honeypot. Nalwa wants you to attack the gate. It's a narrow 30-foot-long tunnel, remember? So you and 50 of your bravest warriors put your shields up, you ram the gate. It splinters. You've done it. You're in. And you find yourself in a small 20 by 20 foot stone reception area. And as your eyes adjust, you realize the walls are just holes, 50 loopholes, on all 4 walls at every height, from which 50 Jezzails and 10 small cannons are all pointing directly at you. It's not a courtyard, it's a blender. It's a stone and mud box designed for the express purpose of turning 50 brave men into a fine red paste. That's not a gate. It's a welcome to the afterlife, Matt, and it's brutally mathematically efficient. So, how did he do this? This is where historians and engineers still argue. Was Hari Singh Nalwa out there with a chalkboard and a team of mathematicians, plotting 500 different trigonometric angles on a blueprint? Was he calculating, if Wall A is 42 feet high, and Wall B is at a 108-degree angle, then the loophole at Y must be 6 feet off the ground? Or was it a more organic, iterative craftsman's eye genius? Was he just standing on the half-built Wall A shouting to his master builder, his mistri, on Wall B, "Hey, Balwinder, can you see that goat at the bottom of my wall?" "No, Sardarji." "Okay, build your tower 5 feet higher. How about now?" "Yes, Sardarji, I have a perfect shot." "Good. Put a cannon there." It was almost certainly the latter. It was practical, on the ground, line-of-sight mathematics. It wasn't a preordained, perfect system like Vauban's. It was a custom-built system, tailored to every lump of rock, every fold in the ground. And that's what made it more lethal. A Vauban fort is a perfect logical puzzle. If an attacker is also a genius, like Vauban himself, he can solve that puzzle. He can find the one mathematical flaw, the one correct way to attack it. But Jamrud is not a puzzle. It's 500 different, ugly, overlapping puzzles. There is no single solution. To attack it, you'd have to solve for 500 different angles, from 500 different heights, all at once, while being shot at by 500 different guns. It's less military science and more military abstract art, and the art is titled, "Man Getting Shot from Every Direction at Once." The British spy saw a crude mess. He was, in fact, looking at one of the most complex, multi-layered, and lethal defensive structures in the world. The British spy might have been confused, but the man in Kabul was not. He was crystal clear on what was happening. You're no longer in Jamrud. You're 160 miles west, in the high, dusty city of Kabul, in the Bala Hisar, the ancient fortress palace of Afghanistan. You're in the court of Dost Muhammad Khan, the Emir of Afghanistan, the founder of the Barakzai dynasty. And he is in a fury. He is a shrewd, ruthless, and brilliant political operator. He is a survivor, and he is watching his entire strategic world crumble, all because of one man and his obsession with mud pies. First, the Sikhs, these infidels from the Punjab, annex Peshawar. This is a mainstream historical fact, the 1834 annexation. This is not just an insult, it's a violation. Peshawar is an Afghan city. It is the winter capital of his ancestors. It is culturally, historically, and economically Pashtun. And Ranjit Singh, this one-eyed lion, just took it. This is a humiliation of the highest order, but it's a humiliation he can, perhaps, manage. He can bide his time. He can raise a Lashkar. He can try to take it back. But then, this Nalwa, this bogeyman his people are terrified of, this Nalwa starts to build. He doesn't just garrison Peshawar. He pushes past it. He marches his army right up to the very teeth of the Khyber Pass, to the threshold of Afghanistan itself, and he builds that thing. He builds Jamrud. And Dost Muhammad Khan looks at his maps, and he doesn't see a crude, misshapen pile of mud. He doesn't see a confused, primitive fortress. He sees, with perfect, terrifying clarity, exactly what it is. He sees a dagger. He sees a loaded pistol, aimed not just at his country, but at his throne. Why? Because Jamrud isn't just a fort. It's a plug. For 1,000 years, the Khyber Pass was a two-way street. It was the highway for Afghan armies to pour down into the riches of India. It was their source of plunder, their pressure release valve, and the key to their entire economy. It was also the route for Afghan raiders and tribes to come down, loot, and go home, keeping the frontier economy and the emir's authority well-oiled. Hari Singh Nalwa, in one move, has just corked the bottle. He's not just stopped the invasions, he's turned the pass into a one-way street pointing out of Punjab, not into it. That 10-sided mud pie is a strategic nightmare. It's an existential threat. And here's a quirky tidbit, just to add to the emir's paranoia. He's also in the middle of the great game. Right at this moment, a Russian agent named Jan Vitkovich is on his way to Kabul to offer him an alliance. At the same time, a British agent, our old friend Alexander Burns, is already in Kabul, trying to persuade him to ally with the British. Dost Muhammad is playing this high-stakes 4D chess game. And then Hari Singh Nalwa just walks onto the board, kicks over all the pieces, and builds a giant, ugly, 40-foot-high mud fortress that screams Nalwa is coming. The emir is now completely paranoid. Is this a Sikh move? Or is this a British move, using the Sikhs as their puppets? Is this the first step in a British-Sikh invasion of Afghanistan itself? This is where historians still argue. When Dost Muhammad Khan makes his next move, is he a jihadist? Is he a religious fanatic incensed by the infidel Sikhs building a fort on sacred Pashtun land, and he's launching a holy war to wipe them out? Or is he just a cold, pragmatic statesman? Is he a king who knows that a ruler who allows his winter capital to be stolen and his main invasion route to be plugged by a mud fort will not be a ruler for very long? He has to respond, not just for God, but for his own credibility. He chooses both. He sends his mullahs out to every mosque. He declares a jihad, a holy war against the Sikh infidels. He uses religion to unify the tribes to raise the largest army he possibly can. And he's not sending some local warlord. He's sending his sons. He's sending his best generals. He's sending every cannon he can find. This will not be a raid. This will be a war. This will be the ultimate test. The objective is simple: smash Peshawar and level that 10-sided mud and straw abomination at the mouth of the pass. The full, professional, furious army of the Afghan Empire is marching, and it's marching straight for Jamrud. It's April 1837. The air over the dusty plain of Jamrud is still hot. You're on the high central tower, the Burj, with a Sikh sentry. He's been staring west for weeks, his eyes raw from the wind and the sun. And then, one morning, he sees it. It's not a Lashkar, it's not a band of raiders, it's a smudge. A low brown cloud that slowly fills the entire western horizon. A cloud that stretches from one side of the Khyber Pass's mouth to the other. And the cloud is moving. It is the dust kicked up by 10,000 horses, 20,000 feet, and the wheels of dozens of heavy cannons. This is not a raid. This is the jihad. This is the ultimate test. The alarm drums start their frantic, thundering beat, the sound echoing off those 10 lumpy walls. The garrison, somewhere between 600 and 1,000 men, rushes to the battlements. They are commanded by a brave and capable general, Maha Singh Mirpuri, but they know what they are. They are a single, tiny mud and straw island in the face of a tsunami. The Afghan army that pours out of the pass is a terrifying, magnificent, and professional sight. This is the mainstream historical fact of the Battle of Jamrud. Dost Muhammad Khan has sent his best. He has sent his sons, Wazir Akbar Khan and Muhammad Afzal Khan. He has sent his best Ghazi, holy warrior regiments. He has sent his regular infantry, and most importantly, he has sent his artillery. This is the moment of truth. The British spy's dismissive report is, in this moment, the only thing that matters. Is this a crude mud pie, or is it a fortress? The Afghans, led by professional generals who are just as smart as Nalwa, don't just charge. That's for fools. They deploy. They unlimber their cannons. They have more guns and heavier guns than the small Zambaraks the fort possesses. Their gunners take their aim, the orders are shouted, and the siege of Jamrud begins. Boom! The first barrage echoes off the mountains. You watch the cannonballs arc across the sky. They are aimed perfectly at that 40-foot-high, primitive, vertical mud wall. And this is the moment. The cannonballs hit and thud, thwack, thump. There is no shattering. There is no explosion of stone shrapnel. The mud walls, that 12-foot thick matrix of pies and rock and straw, catch the cannonballs. They are absorbed. They vanish into the wall, leaving just a small, puckered hole, like a fist punch in a giant's stomach. The British spy was wrong. The Afghan gunners are baffled. They fire again, and for days they pound the walls of Jamrud, and the walls hold. The crude mud pie is swallowing their best artillery without even burping. This is a disaster for the Afghans. Their primary weapon, their civilized cannons, are useless, so they revert to what they know. The Ghazis, furious and whipped into a religious frenzy, charge. They roar their war cries and swarm the base of the fortress, looking for a way in. They head for that laughably small gate. And now the second part of Nalwa's design kicks in. The offensive part. The fortress, which has been silently absorbing the punches, now bites back. The moment the attackers enter that 500-yard kill zone, the walls erupt. The Sikh Jazail snipers in those high, irregular towers open fire, their long-range, heavy-caliber shots picking off leaders from impossible distances. The cannons on the ramparts, the small, maneuverable Zambaraks, open up with grape shot. And the poor, brave, doomed souls who make it to the gate are funneled into that 30-foot-long meat grinder sally port. And the walls of that small chute spit fire, and the attackers. They don't die. They are deleted. They are vaporized in a three-dimensional, interlocking mathematical hell of Nalwa's own design. Here's a quirky tidbit. The fort's water supply. The Afghans knew the fort was isolated. A classic siege tactic is to just surround the enemy and wait for them to die of thirst. But Hari Singh Nalwa, the master builder, had anticipated this. Jamrud had been built with massive, deep-hidden cisterns. The Afghans are pounding a mud wall that doesn't break, and they are waiting for a garrison to run out of water, and that garrison has more water than the besieging army does. It is a perfect logistical and architectural nightmare for the attackers. But this is where historians still argue. The fort is holding, yes, but it is not winning. For all its genius, it has one critical, insurmountable flaw. It's static. The message gets out. A desperate lone rider under the cover of night slips through the massive 20,000-man Afghan cordon. He rides his horse into the ground, a mad dash the 10 or so miles back to Peshawar, and he stumbles into the military headquarters, demanding to see the Sardar. You're in Peshawar now, in the governor's palace, and Hari Singh Nalwa, the tiger, is not a well man. He's in his mid-40s, but a life of non-stop campaigning, sleeping in armor, and, fighting tigers, has taken its toll. He is reportedly sick with a fever, in bed, under doctor's orders. The messenger bursts in, covered in dust and sweat, and delivers the news. Jamrud is besieged. The walls hold, but the full Afghan army is here. All of it. A normal man, a Sikh man, would send a message to Lahore. He'd ask for reinforcements. He'd tell the garrison to hold on for 3 weeks. He'd follow procedure. But you're dealing with Hari Singh Nalwa. Procedure is what other people use. He doesn't send a messenger. He is the message. He hauls his sick body out of bed, roars for his armor, and calls for his personal cavalry, the Gurchars. He's not waiting for the infantry. He's not waiting for cannons. He's going. Now. He is a man who is literally, physically, on fire with a fever, and he decides the only cure is to go and punch an army of 20,000 men in the face. It's the most Nalwa decision ever. This is the mainstream historical fact of the 30th of April, 1837. The Afghan army is still pounding the walls of Jamrud, getting increasingly frustrated. The garrison is exhausted. And then, from the east, from the direction of Peshawar, a new dust cloud appears. It's small, but it's moving fast. It's Hari Singh Nalwa, at the head of his elite cavalry, and he has come to relieve the siege. But he's not just relieving it. He's not trying to sneak supplies in. He is attacking the besiegers. He leads his cavalry in a thunderous charge that slams into the rear of the Afghan army, scattering their siege lines and throwing them into total chaos. The garrison inside Jamrud hears the familiar Sikh war cries, Bole So Nihal, Sat Shri Akal, and they realize their Sardar is here. The tiger is loose. They throw open that meat grinder sally port, and this time, they are not waiting to be attacked. They sally out, led by the fortress commander, Maha Singh. The Afghan army is now caught in a perfect pincer, a hammer and anvil. They are being attacked from the front by the newly emboldened garrison, and they are being savaged from the rear by the tiger bogeyman himself. The battle is a maelstrom. It's a desperate, swirling cavalry and infantry brawl on the dusty plain right under the shadow of those 40-foot mud walls. And Nalwa is everywhere. He's where he always is, at the front. He's a middle-aged man, sick with a fever, and he is fighting with the fury of a 20-year-old, cutting down Ghazis left and right. The Afghans, who had been whipped up into a frenzy to attack a fort, now find themselves face-to-face with the one man they are all, individually, terrified of. The Nalwa is coming. Ghost Story is here, and it has a very large sword. The Afghan line breaks. The jihad turns into a rout. And this is where historians still argue. Was this charge a brilliant, decisive, tactical masterstroke? Or was it a moment of pure, unadulterated berserker recklessness? Was Nalwa, sick and feverish, just so angry they dared to touch his fort that he threw all caution to the wind? Was it a necessary gamble to break the back of a much larger army? Or was it just maybe a little bit of hubris, a legendary warrior needing one last legendary fight? The rout is on. The Sikhs are winning. And Nalwa, high on his horse, is rallying his men for that one final devastating pursuit, when a Jezail shot rings out from a small rocky hillock, or maybe it's grape shot from a small hidden cannon. The sources are hazy, but the result is not. The tiger slumps in his saddle. He's been hit, and he's been hit badly in the chest and stomach. He is mortally wounded. This is the quirky and utterly legendary tidbit of his death. He knows he's dying, and he knows with perfect, cold, tactical clarity that the second the army sees him fall, their morale will shatter. The rout will reverse and the Afghans will counterattack and win. So with his last breaths, he gives his final order. He grabs his standard bearer and growls, "Do not, under any circumstances, let them know I am dead." He orders his men to take his body, dying or dead, and prop him up on the ramparts of Jamrud in the window facing the battlefield. They are to keep his horse saddled at the gate. As far as the army is concerned, the Sardar is still watching, and as long as he is watching, they cannot fail. He turns his own death into his final and most brilliant psychological weapon. The tiger is dead, but the bogeyman is now immortal. The tiger is dead, but the tiger is still watching. You're on the battlefield now, a Sikh soldier. You just saw your Sardar fall, but then he was whisked away, and now you look up at that central tower in Jamrud, and there, in the window, you can see his silhouette. He's there. He's watching. The Sardar is watching, so you will not run. You will not break. You will not falter. That final, brilliant psychological order from the dying general has turned the Sikh army into a machine. They are no longer fighting for victory. They are fighting for the approval of the ghost in the window. The rout of the Afghans continues, turning into a grim, bloody, and desperate fight, with the Sikhs energized by a supernatural borrowed morale. Now flip your perspective. You're an Afghan Ghazi. You were routing, you were terrified, you saw the bogeyman himself, and you ran. But the pursuit feels a little less organized, and the tiger isn't on his horse anymore. Where did he go? You stop. You rally with your comrades. You look back, and you see it. The Sikhs are fighting like demons, but their leader is gone. And more importantly, the fort, that damned, lumpy, 10-sided mud pie, is completely, utterly, arrogantly fine. You have pounded it for days. You have thrown thousands of men at it. You have lost your best warriors in that gate trap. And the fortress has not just survived, it looks bored. It is completely unfazed. This is the mainstream historical fact that decides the battle. The fortress held. The design worked. Hari Singh Nalwa's great, ugly mathematical proof was signed in mud and stone, and it was correct. The Afghan army, a massive force of over 20,000 men with heavy artillery, had failed utterly to breach a crude mud pie built by a barbaric general. The man was mortal. The man could be killed by a single lucky shot. But his math, his geometry, his system was, for all intents and purposes, invincible. The fortress was the true hero of the battle. It was Nalwa's mind, made manifest. And it was his mind that won the day, even after his body had failed. The Afghan army is now in a terrible position. They are exhausted. They have taken horrendous casualties, both from the siege and from Nalwa's insane, fever-fueled cavalry charge. Their morale is shattered because nothing they did worked. And now, rumors are flying. Rumors that Nalwa isn't dead, just wounded. Rumors that the main Sikh army from Lahore, 100,000 strong, is on the march. The Afghan generals, Dost Muhammad Khan's sons, are brilliant commanders, and they know a lost cause when they see one. They have failed their primary objective. They have failed to take Jamrud. Therefore, they have failed to take Peshawar. The dagger is still at their throat. And so, with a mixture of fury, humiliation, and confusion, the Afghan army begins to withdraw. They pull back from the walls of Jamrud, gather their wounded, and begin the long, sullen, defeated march back up the Khyber Pass. And here is a fantastic, quirky tidbit. This is the birth of spin. The Afghan generals could not return to Kabul and tell their father, the emir, "We lost." The entire jihad failed because of a mud fort. That's a career-ending move. So what did they do? During the chaos of the battle, they had managed to capture a few of the Sikh cannons that Nalwa's forces had sallied out with. So they dragged those cannons back to Kabul in triumph. They held a massive parade, claiming a glorious victory. "Look, we have captured the infidels' cannons. We have killed the tiger. We have won." It was a magnificent piece of political theater, but they hadn't taken the fort. Everyone on the frontier knew they hadn't taken the fort. And this is where historians still argue. Who won the Battle of Jamrud? It's one of the great bloody what-ifs of history. The Sikhs lost their greatest general, their tiger, their bogeyman, their irreplaceable military genius. This was a catastrophic, strategic, national loss. You cannot overstate it. The Afghans, on the other hand, killed Hari Singh Nalwa, which they counted rightly as a massive victory. But the Afghans failed their military objective. They did not take the fort. They did not take Peshawar. The Cork held. The frontier held. So, was it a Sikh strategic victory but a tactical disaster? Or was it an Afghan tactical victory, killing Nalwa, but a strategic failure? The answer is yes. But as you stand on that 40-foot-high mud wall, watching the last of the Afghan army disappear into the pass, you don't care about the political spin. You just know one thing. The tiger is gone, and you are standing inside the fortress that was his last and greatest thought. The design proved itself. The mud pie beat the empire. The dust has settled. The Afghan army is a sullen, retreating cloud on the horizon. The Battle of Jamrud is over. The tiger is dead, his body likely being prepared for its hero's funeral. And his masterpiece, The 10-sided, 40-foot-high mud pie is still standing almost arrogantly, with just a few pockmarks in its skin to show for the effort. The design worked. The system held. The math was correct. And this, for you as you stand on that quiet, bloody rampart, is where the real mystery begins. The what is undeniable. The fort is here. But the why? That's the question that will echo down the centuries. Why did it work? How did he know? This is the great unanswered question that sits at the heart of the Hari Singh Nalwa legend. It's the question that historians, engineers, and military theorists are still arguing about to this day. Was Hari Singh Nalwa a one in a billion, self-taught, intuitive genius? Was he a natural philosopher of war, a man who just understood the physics of mud and the psychology of fear without ever reading a book about it, or was he something else? Was he the last great master of a lost school of science? Was he a book learner after all, just from a library we've never seen, reading mathematical texts we never knew existed? Let's take the first hypothesis, the intuitive genius or pragmatist argument. This is the one that's easiest to prove. You've seen the evidence. He's in Hazara. He sees a problem, guerrillas. He sees the European solution, star forts, is stupid. So he just makes up a new one. He uses what's at hand, mountains, mud, and his own terrifying reputation. He's the ultimate craftsman general. Remember us shouting from one wall to the next, "Can you see the goat?" No. Build it higher. This theory says Jamrud is simply the final, most refined version of that iterative, on-the-ground, learn-as-you-go process. He was a systems thinker, and his designs were just applied common sense, if your common sense happens to be at a genius level. The mud wall. He used mud because it was cheap and fast, and then he was pleasantly surprised when it turned out to be better at stopping cannonballs than stone. It was a happy accident that his genius-level brain immediately recognized and adopted. This is the mainstream historical fact that supports this. He was an administrator and a man of action. His whole life was about solving immediate practical problems. Famine in Kashmir, reorganize the tax code, import new crops. Done. Rebellious tribes in Hazara, build a network of forts. Done. He wasn't a philosopher in a study. He was a project manager in a war zone. His textbook was the landscape itself. But then, there's the other side, the lost school of science argument. This one is more romantic, more mysterious, and, in its own way, just as compelling. This argument says, don't you dare call him an intuitive brute. This argument looks at his other resume. This is the man who was fluent in Persian, the man who was a scholar of Sikh scripture, the man who minted coins, the man who ran the economy of Kashmir. This was not a simple man of action. This was a saint soldier, a polymath. This argument says a man that smart, that curious, that educated doesn't just get lucky with mud. This theory suggests that Nalwa wasn't inventing a new science. He was applying an old one, a non-European one. Here's a quirky tidbit. We know that ancient and medieval India had incredibly sophisticated, written texts on statecraft, architecture, and engineering. The Artha Shastra, an ancient text on statecraft, has entire chapters on how to build forts with specific mathematical rules for walls, ramparts, and choke points. The Vastu Shastra texts on architecture are a complex geometric and mathematical system. Is it really so crazy to think that a 19th century Punjabi polymath, literate in the high languages of his world, might have studied these or similar texts? What if Hari Singh Nalwa was the Vauban of a forgotten Indic Persian school of military engineering? A school that prioritized height, not flatness? A school that understood soft defenses, like mud, long before the West did? A school that based its geometry not on perfect Euclidean symmetry, but on the organic, chaotic, and living geometry of the mountains themselves? This would explain everything. It would explain why his forts weren't just one-off good ideas, but a system, a repeatable, scalable design philosophy. It would explain why the British spies were so baffled. They weren't just looking at a crude fort, they were looking at a different scientific paradigm. They were trying to read a Russian textbook using a French dictionary. They couldn't see the genius because they didn't even speak its language. This, right here, is where the historians still argue. We don't have the book. We don't have Nalwa's treatise on asymmetrical mud warfare. He was too busy doing it to write it down. He left his textbook written in 40-foot-high mud walls across the frontier. So, was he the intuitive pragmatist? Or was he the educated master of a lost tradition? The truth, as you suspect, is probably a perfect and inimitable fusion of the both. He was a genius because he was a scholar. And he was a scholar who was a genius. He had the book learning and the craftsman's eye. And he fused them into something new, something that died with him on that bloody day in 1837. We are left, like the British spies, just staring at the result, completely baffled. You're standing on that wall and the silence is deafening. The battle is over, the tiger is dead, and the empire holds its breath. You can feel the wave of panic ripple out from Jamrud all the way back to Lahore. The Sardar is gone. The one, irreplaceable, bogeyman general who held this entire impossible frontier together by the sheer force of his reputation, is dead. This, everyone assumes, is the end. The Afghans will be back. The jihad will resume. The tribes will rise. The frontier will collapse. And then, a strange, quiet thing happens. Nothing. The Afghans don't come back, not in force. The jihad, which was built on the charisma of its leaders and the promise of plunder, has fizzled out. They came, they threw their best at the infidel fort, and the fort ate their cannons, ate their ghazis, and it's still standing. And yes, they killed the tiger. But now, in his death, he's no longer a man. He's a myth. He's a ghost. And his ghost still watches from that 40-foot-high mud wall. The math of terror was so successful that it became self-perpetuating. This is the mainstream historical fact, and it's the most important one. The frontier held. Hari Singh Nalwa's fortress chain, the system he designed in Hazara and perfected at Jamrud, worked. It outlived him. For the next decade, until the Sikh empire itself dissolved from internal decay, the great Afghan invasion never came. The Khyber Pass, that 3,000-year-old artery of conquest, was shut. It was plugged. The mathematician's final proof was correct, and it held the line long after its author was gone. Think about the great game again. The British in Calcutta, the Russians in St. Petersburg. Their maps are now suddenly wrong. That big, scary red invasion route arrow on all their maps now has a giant, mud and stone stop sign in front of it, one that has proven it can stop a 20,000-man army. This one man's obsessive, crude engineering has just changed the entire geopolitical balance of Central Asia. And he did it with dirt. This, of course, is where historians still argue, and it's the biggest what if. What if Nalwa had survived that day? What if that Jazail shot had missed by 6 inches? He would have been the undisputed, living legend hero of the empire. Ranjit Singh, the one-eyed lion, was old, and he would die just 2 years later in 1839. His death would unleash a torrent of chaos, assassination, and civil war as his sons and wives tore the empire apart. What role would the tiger have played in that? Would this pragmatic, ruthless, brilliant administrator general have been the one man who could hold it all together? Would he have become the de facto king? Or would his aggressive nature, his bogeyman reputation, have dragged the fragile empire into a disastrous preemptive invasion of Afghanistan, a war that would have bled it dry? We'll never know. But in death he became a martyr. In life he might have become a problem. But let's look at the legacy of the forts. That's the real story. The Sikh empire does collapse. After Ranjit Singh's death, it falls into a Game of Thrones-style civil war. The British, seeing their chance, step in. The 2 Anglo-Sikh wars are fought, brutal, bloody affairs. And in 1849, the British annex the Punjab. The Sikh empire is dissolved. The one-eyed lion's kingdom is no more, and the British now are the new masters of the Khyber Pass. And here is the supreme, the most deliciously quirky and ironic tidbit in this entire story. The British, the ones whose spies laughed at Jamrud, the ones who called it a crude mud pie, the ones who said it was barbaric and unscientific. What do they do with it? They don't demolish it. They don't build their own beautiful Vauban-style star fort next to it. They move in. They immediately garrison it with their own troops, the famous Khyber rifles. That laughably small gate, that primitive 40-foot wall, that misshapen 10-sided thing, becomes the single most important, most vital, most critical anchor of the British Northwest frontier. They complain about it, of course. They write reports about the poor ventilation and the native smell. They improve it by adding corrugated tin roofs and brick parapets, like putting a cheap vinyl top on a vintage Ferrari. But they use it. They use it exactly as Nalwa designed it, as a watchtower, a panopticon, a garrison, and a giant psychological stop sign. The tiger's math was so robust that his mortal enemies, the men who dismantled his empire, had no choice but to adopt his architecture. His barbaric system became the foundation of the British Raj's entire frontier policy for the next 100 years. They didn't just use Jamrud, they copied his whole network, building their own chain of Thanas and Burrs, all based on his unscientific principles. The tiger got the last laugh after all. And so, you just stand there, on the quiet ramparts of Jamrud. The sun is setting over the Khyber Pass. The day trippers from Peshawar, if there are any, have gone home. The British, with their tin roofs and their condescending reports, are long gone. Their own empire just another layer of dust on this ancient, angry place. The Sikh empire is a memory, a story, in a book. And Hari Singh Nalwa, the tiger, the bogeyman, the warrior, is gone. But his math is still here, right beneath your feet. You are standing on the solution. You are standing on the proof. His body is dust, but his idea is still holding this hill. This is the ultimate fate of this kind of genius. The civilized star forts of Vauban, they are preserved. They are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. They are beautiful green geometric parks that tourists visit because their language, that clean, Euclidean, Enlightenment-era geometry, is a language we still speak. We see it, and we recognize it as intelligent design. But Jamrud? It's just an old, lumpy mud fort on a hostile border. Its genius is written in a language we have forgotten, a language of pies, a language of asymmetrical terror, a language of geology. And so we call its creator a warlord, a barbaric general, an intuitive brute. We call him a tiger, focusing on the claws, and we forget about the brain. We forget the man who was, in his own, brilliant, terrifying way, the Vauban of the Hindu Kush. This is the mainstream historical fact that haunts this whole story. His work was so successful it became anonymous. The British, his enemies, used his system, and in doing so, they erased his name from it. They adopted his geological warfare, called it frontier policy, and went on with their empire. The tiger became a folktale, a name to scare children with. And the mathematician, the real man, just went to sleep. He's dormant, sleeping inside these walls. His spirit, that cold, pragmatic, calculating intellect, is still here, in the curve of that wrong 10-sided wall, in the too-high 40-foot tower, in the laughably small gate that is still the deadliest welcome mat in Asia. Here's one last quirky tidbit for you. Today, the fort at Jamrud is still there. It's been rebuilt, added to, improved by the British, and is now a post for the Pakistani Khyber rifles. But it's on his foundations. It's on his spot. And the main gate, the one that tourists and soldiers use today, it's called the Hari Singh Gate. His name is still there, literally carved into the entrance of the very system he designed, even as his science is forgotten. His reputation as the bogeyman outlived his reputation as the engineer. And that's the final argument historians have. That old debate, intuitive genius versus law school. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the point of Hari Singh Nalwa is that he proves that genius doesn't just look one way. It's not always a man in a wig in a Parisian salon, drawing perfect snowflakes. Sometimes genius is a man with a fever, in armor, on a horse, shouting at his masons to build it higher because he sees the math of the landscape in a way no one else can. He was the answer to this place, and when the place changed, when the British came with their massive industrial-age siege guns, his mud pie walls would eventually have become obsolete. But for his time, for his enemy, for this equation, he was the only one who found the solution. He was the sleeping mathematician. And his forts are the dreams he left behind, a chain of rough mud and stone ideas that held a frontier, plugged a pass, and baffled the greatest empire in the world. And they are still baffling us. Still, we look at them and say, how crude, because we, like that British spy, are still trying to read a different language. We are still looking for the stars, and we are completely missing the mountain. And so as we stand here at the Hari Singh Gate, and the last light of the sun catches the high peaks of the Khyber, the story of the warrior-mathematician finally, truly, comes to a rest. The math is done. The proof is complete. The fort and the idea holds. You can feel the air cooling on those high ramparts, the wind from the pass finally quieting down after a long, angry day. The story of the man who could outthink a mountain, who used mud and terror as a form of calculus, begins to settle, just like the dust on the plain below. The echoes of the Jezzails and the cannon fire have faded, replaced by the distant hum of the world you're about to return to. The tiger is asleep, his watch finally over, and that 40-foot-high wall, his final testament, no longer feels like a weapon. It just feels old and tired, and in its own strange, lumpy way, peaceful. It's time now to let that sleeping mathematician rest, to let the silence of the pass have the final word. The calculations are all finished, the variables all solved, and the final answer is this enduring, quiet, and profoundly powerful structure. He has held the line. And now, as the first stars begin to appear over those high, jagged peaks, you can let your own watch end too.